The 2024 Pokemon TCG season just ended with the biggest tournament in history, with over 2,600 Masters players and thousands of cards shuffled in New Orleans as players look to be crowned the 2024 North America International Champion. And with the Twilight Masquerade site becoming legal for the first time in that event, the metagame looked to be all over the place, and despite some clear standout powerful decks coming out of Japan, there were likely still a few hidden gems amongst such a huge crowd of talented trainers. The tournament did not disappoint, and we had amazing moments that will live etched in Pokemon TCG history, such as the epic game-defining confusion flip in the first game of the finals, as well as the judge shuffle that ultimately handed Andrew Hedrick the prime catcher he needed to win on turn 3 of time and be crowned the champion. As day 1 started, there was talk of all the Lugia V-Star and Raging Bolt EX decks in all the tables, and as the day advanced, it became more and more apparent that Gardevoir EX had been most top players' deck choice and it was dominating the top tables. However, 290 players made it through to day 2, and as the champion of the tournament proved it, you can still go into day 2 at 6-1 and go undefeated to make top 8 and win the tournament. So it really was anybody's game, and while Lugia, Raging Bolt, Gardevoir and even Lost Box are well established and popular decks, there were a few hidden gems among day 2 that could be cool options if you're tired of the usual top tier decks and want to play something fresh but that is still competitive. These decks made a showing in day 2 against all odds and overcame many obstacles and very likely had the surprise factor in their favor a lot more so than other meta decks. The 3 decks I'm referring to are Regidrago V-Star, Greninja EX and Iron Thorns EX. Now, none of these were never before considered cards, and all would occasionally show up in the top 16 of City Leagues or play limitless tournaments, but making day 2 at the biggest tournament in history is no easy feat. Clearly all these players prepared really well and likely hit a good amount of good matchups whilst knowing their decks in and out to try and outplay opponents who couldn't improvise effectively against these less popular decks. So let's take a look at what made these decks unique and why they were able to succeed, starting with Regidrago V-Star.
If you have enjoyed the video so far and found the information useful, please consider becoming a tablemon channel member through the join button down below. For as low as $1.99 a month, you can help support the creation of these videos.
Regidrago V-Star had 4 players in day 2, all of which played different lists from each other. All 4 had unique aspects to them, but it was Jacob I that placed the highest by reaching top 16. Regidrago V-Star has been out for a long time now though, so why did it never actually become a real deck until just now? The number one reason I believe is Steel Mask Ogre Pony X. Without it, the deck doesn't have an easy way to really power up multiple Regidrago V-Star or need to rely on gimmicky attacks such as Dragonite's Energy Hurricane or utilize the underwhelming Gardenia's Vigor. Newer sets also gave the deck extra tools such as new powerful attackers like Raging Bolt EX and also Earthen Vessel, which serves as a way to have the right energy to accommodate the awkward energy cost, as well as help with discarding the Dragon type Pokemon for Apex Dragon. Jacob's top 16 list featured a lot of consistency and the core attackers you would expect from a Regidrago V-Star deck: Dragapult EX, Raging Bolt EX, Hisuian Goodra V-Star and Noivern EX. Dragapult EX is one of the newest tools at the deck's disposal and is part of the reason why it is now doing well. This deck can potentially use it just as fast as the normal Pidgeot EX or Xatu builds, thanks to Regidrago V-Star being a stage 1 and it having the Steel Mask Ogre Pony EX engine behind it. Phantom Dive is an amazing attack, and it really helps diversify the threat level of the deck thanks to the possibility to get extra prizes with a damage counter placement on the bench. Raging Bolt EX provides the deck a much needed option, even if it is very destructive, to hit for a lot of damage and 1KO any threat no matter how chunky they are. Now, getting rid of 4 to 5 energy to 1KO big threats is very stressful to the deck's resources, especially the energy switches, so the V-Star powered Legacy Star is very useful when trying to get those back after a big attack. If you're planning on using Bellowing Thunder, you really need to have a good excuse to do so over Phantom Dive or our next attacker Hisuian Goodra V-Star's Rolling Iron. Hisuian Goodra V-Star has been considered a top tier deck on and off in its lifetime, with some metagames stepping away from 1KOs and allowing the card to shine, and others such as the one we have today featuring Pokemon that can easily bypass any damage reduction such as Enchino, Drifloon or Raging Bolt EX. What this deck lacked was always a way to go toe to toe against decks that could 1KO it, and with Regidrago V-Star you are not completely locked into a defensive strategy. And finally, we have Noivern EX, which is a very specific tech for basic Pokemon decks that can't be dealt with through Rolling Iron or Phantom Dive, with it being specifically Raging Bolt EX, Ogre Pony EX. By using Cover Flight over and over, the deck can never damage you and needs to rely on sending you to the bench and then bringing you back up to KO you. Now, given how they're more explosive, and you'll need to bench Pokemon to power up anyways or risk getting benched out, I'm not sure how effective that strategy is, as you would need to have nothing in play but Regidrago V-Star in order to make this strategy effective. Jacob used Clef and Mew EX as support Pokemon to help with setup and hand disruption, but it's also worth pointing out that with energy switches, you can also power up a Mew EX out of the blue to copy other sorts of attacks such as your opponent's own Moonlight Shuriken or Lost Impact or even Burning Darkness. As far as the rest of the deck goes though, it's pretty standard and solid with pretty much maximum consistency and a straightforward supporter lineup with 4 Professor's Research, 3 Boss's Orders and 2 Iono and a Penny, as a tech to help remove a liability from the board. Items wise, we have maximum Pokemon Search with 4 Nest Ball and 4 Ultra Ball, and the essential 4 Earthen Vessel and 4 Energy Switch, which really make the deck tick with Prime Catcher as the ace-spec of choice to be able to maintain pressure no matter what situation you find yourself in. Regidrago V-Star is finally a very well-rounded, consistent deck that can adapt to all sorts of situations, and the best part is, the deck can add other Dragon-type attackers to help in an ever-evolving metagame. One big example of this is a brand new Kyurem that is coming out in Shrouded Fable, which thanks to its ability Anti-Plasma, reducing its attack cost to a single colorless energy if there's a card with Colress in its name in the discard pile, will be a great anti-Lost Zone tech just like Drapion V was against Mew VMAX. However, using Regidrago to copy its attack while costly would allow you to destroy the setup of other decks, not just Lost Zone based ones, such as Gardevoir EX, Charizard EX or Dragapult EX. Yes, the 3 energy discard would be costly, but the payoff is too good to pass up. Of course, Manaphy stops this, but the deck could easily include cancelling Cologne as well to make sure you get the maximum value out of Kyurem's attack. Regidrago V-Star was clearly an underrated deck heading into NAIC. Even I didn't list it in my tier list as I had zero hope for it. But I stand corrected, and I definitely expect good things to come from Regidrago V-Star, and Kyurem will make it an even bigger threat. Next we have Iron Thorns EX. This very peculiar future Pokemon with a fantastic ability actually won NAIC as it was included in Andrew Hedrick's champion decklist and had a big showing in many decklists throughout day 2 as a tech. But I'm referring more to the quad Iron Thorns EX deck that are locking down rulebox abilities the whole game with a initialization ability. Since the rotation of Path to a Peak, rulebox Pokemon abilities have been running unchecked, and while Iron Thorns EX is no Path to a Peak, it still is a powerful Pokemon with great typing, and within the right metagame it was well positioned to succeed. The highest placing Iron Thorns EX was at 73rd place by Ross Cawthon, a veteran player who has earned a Worlds invite every single year since the game's existence, even to the first World Championships in 2002. His list was extremely consistent, and had the right choices to deal with some of the problematic Pokemon. But what would the right metagame be for it? Well, anything that relies on rulebox abilities to function, such as Lugia V-Star or Raging Bolt, coincidentally the 2 most popular decks at NAIC. It also shuts down Pidgeot EX, Charizard EX and Gardevoir EX, which is incredible. The deck is almost a hard counter to Lugia V-Star, as with no other basic Pokemon in the deck, you're always going to open with Iron Thorns EX and the Summoning Star will always be shut down. Without it, Lugia V-Star cannot function at all. Raging Bolt EX also struggles hugely if it doesn't have access to Teal Dens, Squawk and Seize, and Conceal cards at all, though Boss Roar can help the deck get going, so it's not a perfect lock. And while it does shut down Charizard EX and Pidgeot EX, Charizard EX can simply attach 2 energy and start dishing out damage, so it's imperative to chase down the energy with Boss's Orders or Crushing Hammer against them. This also applies to Dragapult EX, as it heavily relies on Pidgeot EX and that is completely shut down. Now, while you also shut down Gardevoir EX, it does play Fluttermane or Klefki to shut it down and then be able to use Psychic Embrace. However, with 4 copies of Lost City as its stadium, if either is benched and not used immediately, they can be chased down and KO'd into the Lost Zone, and if they are in the active, they will also be KO'd and sent into the Lost Zone. Even against Lost Zone, the 4 copies of Lost City go a long way to eliminating any nuisances and potential attackers, whilst initialization means Blood Moon or Saluna requires 5 energy to attack total, but if they do manage this, it's very tough to deal with. There's many other nuances to the deck that made it a pretty good pick for NAIC, and I think it still holds the unsuspecting status of a non-meta deck and could be both a fun and powerful option as we wait to start this 2025 season in July. And finally, the biggest surprise of them all was this Greninja EX Frostlass deck piloted by Zach Elliott. While the 2 cards don't necessarily scream synergy or combo between each other, Frostlass can help cover for the damage cap that Greninja EX is limited to, and it can combo decently with Mirage Barrage, as it could help you passively KO Manaphy off the board to remove the bench damage protection for your opponent. Greninja EX as a standalone card is pretty good, with a powerful single energy attack, Shinobi Blade, that helps enable whatever you need next turn, as well as threatening bench damage attack which can be covered by a double turbo energy. And while that does decrease the damage by 20, don't be fooled by the bug on PCG Live, it's still a pretty good spread attack. One of the biggest issues Greninja EX has is the psychic weakness, as we all saw how Gardevoir EX dominated and almost won NAIC. However, for a smaller local metagame where there isn't a lot of Gardevoir, this deck could certainly stand out, as Greninja EX is tough to take down otherwise. With a thin 1-1 Pidgeot EX line to help support the deck, since you already have Forward Candy in there and Monkey Dory to supplement the damage, the deck is actually quite threatening overall and should not be underestimated. While it lacks in targeting Pokemon with no boss's orders and only one copy of Counter Catcher in the deck, it makes up for in Disruption with Unfair Stamp as the ace-spec and 2 copies of Technical Machine Devolution. Sure, this deck has less moving pieces than the other two, but it is just as threatening, and the Freezing Shroud damage from multiple Frostlass in play can stack up and get out of control quite quickly. As we await news on the 2025 Pokemon TCG season, there are cool rewards to be earned at League like the stamped Buddy Buddy Puffins. But all of these decks and the top NAIC ones are sure to be something to be on the lookout for, as we hopefully will resume with Cups and Challenges once July comes around. If you haven't watched my NAIC video yet, I recommend you do so make sure you keep up with what happened and what decks did well and will surely be popular in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for watching and hope you enjoyed. Let me know what other decks you think would be pretty good that are not on people's radars. Thanks for watching.
If you want to support the channel, you can use code tablemon to get 5% off at Post and Store for your online codes, 10% off for your sealed product at Flipside Gaming, and 10% off on your aluminum accessories at TC Evolutions. Or if you're looking to buy singles or sleeves, you can fill up your cart and close the tab, then click on the affiliate link in the description and check out. That way you can support the channel over at TCG Player, Card Market, and Dragon Shield. ¿Eres de México y necesitas cartas de Pokémon? Busca Hyperbeam Cards en Facebook e Instagram. Y si estás en Tijuana, búscalos en el local C27 en el Centro Comercial Otay.